Yes, the title of this video is pretty dramatic, but I don't think it's misleading because this is not going to be the most positive review. So here's the game plan. I'm going to treat this product with respect and review it as I would any other, but as time goes on, I'm going to explain why I think if you're shopping for a speaker in this price range, you may want to consider some other options before you spend your money. Let's go. Alright, so here it is, the Buchardt Audio P300, a compact two-way speaker featuring a soft dome tweeter in the middle of this metal waveguide. On top you get a 6-inch paper cone woofer by SB Acoustics, and then on the back you get this large passive radiator. And the whole point behind this design is a speaker that can give you big sound from a small box at a reasonable price. Now my review sample came in this cool blue color because at the time of launch, the P300 was available in many awesome colors like green and blue and orange, but unfortunately those have all sold out, so now you can only purchase this speaker in either black or white. Now another main purpose for it existing is because Buchardt Audio wanted this speaker to serve as an affordable alternative to the very popular S400 Mark II. And to give you guys some context, the S400 Mark II currently sells for $2,200 a pair, whereas the P300 retails for just under $1,500 a pair. So now it's time to talk about what's similar and different between these two speakers. Okay, so first let's talk about similarities. Both the S400 and the P300 use the same exact tweeter and waveguide. They use the same passive radiator, and they even use the same speaker cabinet. However, there are going to be some key differences between them, starting with the fact that the P300 uses much less expensive binding post, a more affordable woofer, although I hear it's designed specifically for this speaker, and most importantly, it uses a significantly less expensive crossover than the S400 Mark II. Now, I admit that before these speakers landed, Buchardt Audio was talking a big game about how good these speakers sound, but after spending a lot of time with them, well, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that. Okay, so conclusion first. If you're thinking about getting the P300, then what you should expect is a speaker that's all about giving you a warm sound. The treble is going to be easygoing and laid back. The mid-range is going to sound full and warm. And the bass, well, there's going to be a lot of bass, arguably too much, which is something I'll talk about in just a bit. But before I do, I'm going to quickly identify who I think would really like this speaker and who I think wouldn't like the speaker very much, starting with those of you who would probably like it. Now, in my opinion, it boils down to two groups of audiophiles. The first are those of you who are in a big open room and you need a small speaker to fill that space with warm and easygoing sound. If that's you, then yeah, you're probably going to like it. The second group of audiophiles are those of you who like the look, you have the money to spend on the speaker, and you're saying, hey, I don't need the most audiophile of listening experiences. I just want something small that's fun to listen to. I like the idea of big bass and smooth treble from a small box, and I would like to have something that can sound genuinely good with affordable electronics. If that's you, then you know what? You should go ahead and try these because there's a good chance you're going to love them. So, who wouldn't like them? Well, if you're an audiophile who's looking for the most detailed presentation or you really care about linearity and speed, these are not going to be for you. In fact, if you need a compact speaker that'll give you tight and controlled bass when placed next to a wall, then yeah, these are going to be an easy pass. So to hammer home what I mean here, let's go ahead and dive into the details. Okay, so now let's talk about the sonic character of the P300, because as I just mentioned, this is a speaker that has a warm and laid back sound. So if you're looking for a speaker that's all about speed and clarity and linearity, this is definitely not for you. Instead, this is for somebody who either wants to relax while listening to music, or is for somebody who listens to a lot of poorly recorded material and you need a speaker that can smoothen out that sound. And a lot of this, of course, has to deal with the treble, which, as I also just mentioned, is inherently smooth, and what it's doing is it's trading off detail, specifically at lower volumes, for a speaker that can smoothen out those harsh edges around poor recordings. Now, in terms of character, it's very similar to the Buchardt S400 Mark II, which isn't surprising. It uses the same tweeter and waveguide, Only the Buchardt S400 Mark II is more refined, it's more spacious sounding with better detail separation. And that's all due to the better crossover inside the more expensive S400 Mark II. Now let's talk about the mid-range. So the mid-range is interesting because how you experience the mid-range is going to depend entirely on setup. For example, if you can pull the speaker away from a wall boundary, then what you're going to experience is pretty good mid-range. It's going to sound very full for a speaker this size. It's going to have a slightly warm tone to it, but it's going to integrate very well with the treble and the bass. And overall, you're just going to get a mostly balanced sounding mid-range that's pretty good for something at this price. However, once you begin to place this speaker closer and closer to a wall boundary, that mid-range is going to thicken up to the point of possibly becoming muddy, and this is going to make vocals, just as an example, sound very chesty and full. Now, some of you may like this, but some of you may not, and it's just something that you need to be aware of. Now, when it comes to imaging, like a lot of compact two-way monitors, it does a great job of laying down a wide sound stage that also has good focus in between the speakers. When it comes to dynamic output, it's okay. Look, this isn't a speaker that's going to stun you with contrast between loud and quiet passages, but it does a decent enough job for what it is. The big problem, though, is the bass. In fact, it's such a big problem, I need to create a whole separate section just to discuss that. So let's do that now. So, the bass. In my opinion, I think there's just too much of it. I mean, yes, this is what Buchardt is known for, right? Small speakers that can output strong, warm bass. That's not the last word in speed, but I think Buchardt was just overly aggressive in the tuning of this speaker. For example, unless you're in a big room or can pull this speaker far away from a wall, the bass will quickly begin to dominate the sound. It'll bleed into the mid-range, which will make the mid-range sound overly thick and even muddy sounding at louder volumes. And then the treble, which is already laid back, is going to sound darn near mute when you have this speaker next to a wall. Never mind the fact that the bass fidelity goes to heck in a handbasket and it starts to sound like a $200 speaker. In my opinion, that is not good for a speaker that costs nearly $1,500. And the net result is a niche solution that will only work well for a select group of people. And it perplexes me why Buchardt Audio went in this direction. For example, one of the main reasons why the S400 Mark II continues to be a very popular speaker to this day is because it's a small speaker that offers full, easygoing sound, but it can still work well next to a wall boundary, which is where most people are going to put their speaker. You would think the most affordable speaker in their line would be voiced the same way, but they didn't do that. The only silver lining I can find here is that if you are in a big room, this speaker can output more bass than the S400 Mark II. And in a big room, that's actually a good thing and is the reason why, in that space, this is a better choice than the S400 Mark II. And plus, it could also play just a little bit louder. And let's be fair, some people are just going to like the sound better because it's fun, right? All that bass from a small speaker. If you're not looking for the highest of fidelity presentations, then yeah, it could be a lot of fun, and that's valid too. But the net result is a speaker that's just very difficult for someone like me to recommend. But still, I tried to be fair, but what really sunk this speaker ship is when I started to compare it to other products in and around the same price range. Let's talk about that. Okay, so look, before I begin, I need to acknowledge that if you listen to the P300 in a vacuum, meaning you buy it and you just never compare it to anything else in this price class, then it would be easy to be fairly satisfied with its performance. However, once you begin comparing it to speakers in its price class, that's when I think it becomes a little bit more difficult to justify. For example, the first speaker that I compared it to was the Polk Audio R200 Anniversary Edition, a speaker which I believe retailed for $1,200 or $1,300 at launch. And to be honest, that speaker is the better overall product for less money. You get a far better cabinet, and you get performance that's similar, something that's on the warm and laid back side of neutral, only better in many ways. You get mid-range that's more neutral sounding. You get treble that's more lively yet still easy to listen to. It's a speaker that does a much better job of showing you just how good high quality recordings can be while still making poorly recorded material listenable. And then you get bass that, although still on the warm and strong side of negative neutral is going to be cleaner. And best of all, it could actually sound good while next to a wall boundary. And here's the craziest thing. Right now, that speaker is being closed out for around $850 a pair, meaning that unless you're in a big room or you can pull this speaker away from a wall boundary, there's almost no reason to go with a P300. But to be fair, it is going to output even more bass, and the treble will be more forgiving than even the R200. But still, overall, the R200 is the better value, especially on sale. And then let's pretend like you have just a little bit more money to spend. Then you can get the Dynaudio Evoke 10. Now the Dynaudio is not going to output nearly as much bass, but it's still going to have strong bass. But the critical thing is the quality of the bass, the quality of the mid-range and the treble is going to be significantly better than what you get on the P300. In fact, it's going to compete very evenly with the S400 Mark II in that regard, but only for a little bit more money. And the Evoke 10 can work well next to a wall boundary. And look, I can keep going on, but even with speakers like the KEF LS50 Meta, which are frequently sold for something in this price range, it's going to be a much cleaner sounding, a much quicker sound with far wider and deeper imaging. The bottom line is, as you compare the P300 to more speakers, it becomes clear that you either have to really like its sound or be in a big room in order to justify it. Anyways, look, I think it's time for me to stop beating this dead horse now and to just wrap up this review. Let's go. Actually, you know what I just realized? Some of you are going to be watching this video right now and you're probably thinking, okay, Sean, I know this hasn't been a positive review, but I like a lot of what you just said about this speaker, so what can I do to get great sound out of it? If that's you, no worries, I got you. First, let's talk about setup tips. So if you plan on putting the P300s on stands, then make sure those stands are between 26 and 28 inches in height. And the overall goal is to get your ears in between the location of the waveguide and the woofer. That is where the sound is going to become the most balanced. When it comes to toe-in, you can experiment to taste. I found that they sound best with just a little bit of toe-in. This is what's going to give you that wide soundstage, but with good focus in between the speakers. Next, when it comes to achieving the best bass quality you can from this speaker, you want to pull it away from a wall boundary. I would say no less than 2 feet away from any wall boundary. But hey, if you like that big booty bass, then go ahead and place them next to a wall and have fun. Next, let's talk about equipment matching. So this speaker isn't too particular. It sounds great with Class D amps, Class AB amplifiers, and you don't need to spend a lot of money. When it comes to power, I would say if you're in a small room, a good 20 watts per channel or more should take care of most of your needs. But if you're in a bigger room, I would consider amplifiers that output around 100 watts per channel or more. Now, when it comes to specific recommendations, I had great luck pairing this up to the Aiyima A70. I think it's a $200 integrated amplifier. It does a great job of controlling the bass while giving you a very clean sound, a very high value match. Just don't expect it to sound great at volumes above 85 dB. Now, the best match, in my opinion, for the money was with the Vista Audio Spark 3, which retails for, I think, around $400 or $500. It's not a powerhouse, but the sound quality and tone is really, really good through the speaker, especially if you can give it some room to breathe. But the big thing here is that I wouldn't go beyond $1,000 in electronics with the P300. I mean, yes, it is capable of showing you what better electronics can do, but I think this is the point of diminishing returns for most of you. And I would say the best match for the P300 that I heard is going to be with the Audiolab 6000A. Its clarity and control over the bass perfectly matches the tone of the P300's warm sound. So that is going to be it for my recommendations. So now it is time to wrap up this review. Okay, this has been one of the most critical reviews that I've published in many years. So what I'm going to do now is bring everything back to center. Now, first and foremost, no, I have not had a falling out with Buchardt Audio. They've known about my impressions of these speakers for a while. They knew a negative review was coming, and no, they didn't try to stop it. But what they did tell me is something interesting that I would like to share with you all, which is this. They said, Sean, out of everything that we've sold, it seems like the P300 may be the most beloved speaker that we've made, in the sense that we hardly ever get returns for it, and proportionally speaking, the people who do buy it reach out to us to tell us how much they love it far more than any other product that we sell. And I thought about that, and it made me realize that sometimes there's a disconnect between consumer expectations and reviewer expectations. For example, I would imagine a lot of the people who owned this speaker looked at it and they said, I like the look of it. Buchardt is a reputable company. I like the sound. And what I want to do is I want to take the savings that I get from not buying the S400 Mark II and put that towards electronics so I can build an entire system at a reasonable price. And you know what? That is a perfectly valid way to do things. Now, as a reviewer, I look at things slightly differently. Yes, I look at use case, but I also look at how much the product costs, how many competitors there are, and how those competitors stack up to a product like this in the same price range. And from that point of view, it's very difficult for me to put my name on this speaker and to recommend it to a broad group of people because, in my opinion, it's more niche. It excels at certain things, specifically big room performance, but it's not the best choice, again, in my opinion, for somebody who needs a compact speaker that's going to go next to a wall boundary. But again, that is just my opinion, and at the end of the day, guys, it doesn't matter whether I love something or hate something. The only thing that matters is what you think. I can only hope to set the right expectations for you guys. Now, before I close this off, look, Buchardt Audio, I know you're probably watching this right now. I think the potential for the P300 is fantastic. Just if you ever release a version 2, just get the bass under control and you have a winner. That's all you really have to do. Anyways, guys, that is going to be my take on the P300. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you took something away from this review. But until next time, peace.